Doc Nasty, keeping it classy as always here at Beer and Gear. Got my Colt 45. Now tonight we're going to do a teardown of a microwave. Now this is my old microwave I've recently upgraded. Just because this thing was old, it was ugly, it had grease all over it, and it was outdated. But it still works. A little bit glitchy, you know, some issues with the controller board. But it worked, it cooked the food, and rather than throw it out, there's a lot of cool parts in here, and I'm going to show you what they are, what they do, and maybe what you can do with them. So, a little disclaimer before we get into this. If you're thinking about taking apart a microwave, I can't encourage you to do so because it can be somewhat dangerous. There's some pretty potentially dangerous components within it. So I'm just showing you what I did. I'm not telling you to go fiddling around with your microwave. But it would be pretty cool if you did. But I can't tell you to do it, so don't go, you know, trying to sue me saying that I told you to take your microwave apart. You touched the capacitor inside and it sent you flying across the room, and now, you know, your dog needed surgery because you landed on him and all this other crap. So don't do that. Alright, so the first step in scrapping our microwave is going to be obviously to remove this outer shell. This is just a giant U-shaped piece of sheet metal that's held on here by some screws. So these are all Phillips. You might find Torx screws. So get your necessary drivers if need be. In this case, this is a pretty old microwave. It's probably older than I am, to be honest. And it's just held in by these standard self-tap Phillips head screws. So 2 on this side, there's a few in the back. And I love to save the screws too, by the way. You never know when you might need them for something. In this case though, we're actually going to be putting the case back together, hopefully. Because I want to use it as a computer case. I'm going to build a PC out of this. So of course I want to save them, so that I can use them to reassemble the case once I've scrapped all the components of it. Alright, 2 more to go. Hope that wasn't anything important. Alrighty. So this thing should pop right off. You might have to do some wiggling and jiggling. There we go. Wow. So save that. And this is what's inside. You can see it's pretty simple. You know, electronically, there's really not that much going on in here. If you open the door, you see the bulk of it, you know, the main volume of it is really just the container that you put your food in. There's nothing up here except empty space. There's a little vent here up top. And on my left, your right side of the microwave, you got this control panel. Back here is just a simple circuit board, a single circuit board. And you got some various components in here. And we're going to go through here and I'm going to show you what they are and what they do. Alright, so here's a side view. This is the electronics view of the inside of the microwave, and there's a few potential hazards in here, so I want you to be careful. Don't go saying that I told you to do this, because I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just showing you what I did. So you can see this is your little control panel here. You got all these buttons, a little LCD screen, and behind that is just a simple circuit board, and this is actually the brain of it. This is what controls everything. And as we move to the right, we've got a few components. We've got what looks like a transformer up here, or solenoid possibly. No, it's some sort of transformer. Down here we've got a large transformer. This is one of the prize reclamations of this teardown, this giant transformer, because we can use it for some cool stuff. So I definitely want to save this. Up here is what's called the magnetron. This is what produces the microwaves that actually heat your food. And as we move further to the right, you can see down here, this is a large capacitor. This is a high voltage capacitor. You want to be very careful in dealing with this. You don't want to touch the two terminals of it. We're going to discharge it in a second. And then here you just have a standard AC power. These are usually typically 120 volt here in the US AC motors, and this drives a cooling fan. And this magnetron here, it has a heat sink built into it, and it also forces the heat into the chamber at the same time. So it's cooling the magnetron, and it's moving that heat that it takes off the magnetron into this cooking chamber in here so that it adds to the heat inside the chamber to cook your food. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to disconnect this capacitor. This is the most dangerous thing in here. I don't know exactly the voltage on it. We'll find out in a second here, but typically this is enough to send you flying across the room if it's not discharged before you start handling it. So be very cautious in doing this, and I'm going to show you how to discharge it. Alright, so I've placed my multimeter on these two terminals here, and it's not reading any kind of voltage on this capacitor, but just to be completely safe, we're going to do the old-fashioned screwdriver discharge. What we're going to do is take a screwdriver, which is a conductive metal material, and we're going to jump these two terminals so that any possible electric charge that might be stored in this capacitor is going to be discharged. So I'm going to do that, get a nice clean contact here, and I'm not seeing anything. So any electricity that might have been stored in there, any sort of voltage that we might have had, should now be discharged, and this thing should now be safe to handle. So now we can take this apart without fear of electrocuting ourselves. Alright, so here I've pretty much gutted this microwave. I gave it a good cleaning, but I probably need to clean it out further before I start turning it into my computer tower. All the years of popcorn and Hot Pockets have left it pretty grimy, so I got a shit ton of this wire, tangled mess of wire here. Got a nice power cable, you know, 3-prong. It's got your live and your ground and whatnot. And I got a bunch of connectors, and if nothing else, I can just use the copper insulated wire on there. This is the magnetron, and I'm going to save this. You know, it's got these two giant magnets in here, which could be pretty cool to mess around with, but I'm going to leave it as is. It's got the vacuum tube in it, it's got the magnets, the heat sink, the power connectors, and all that, in case I decide I want to do something with it later. I don't know what exactly I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to leave it as is and throw it in my parts bin. Got a bunch of switches here. I got this giant capacitor. This is a 2000 working volt AC something or other, 0.8 microfarad capacitor, and I could use that for something later. I got this 120 volt AC motor, some switches. I got this smaller transformer here, some other connectors. And this is the granddaddy transformer. This is a giant transformer. This is what people typically disassemble microwaves for. I've seen people use them for spot welders, TIG welders, all kinds of crazy stuff that requires high voltage, because these transformers can put out some pretty beastly voltages. And that's pretty much it. I got this AC motor over here, which I'm going to save. I might use for something. It's already got a fan attached to it. You know, this is a 120 volt AC motor, and it's driving this fan blade, so I'm going to save that, put it in my parts bin, and maybe one day I'll use it for something. And also I got all these screws. Most of these are self-tap. Got some nuts, some bolts, and then over there is my U-shaped sheet metal cover for it. And then this is what used to be the electronics box. I scrapped the board and the button panel and the LCD on there. I might use that for something. Maybe I'll just salvage it for capacitors and resistors and diodes and whatnot. But that's pretty much that. So now that I have this, and notice I maintained, I kept intact the door mechanism, because I want to make use of this when I turn it into my computer tower. So I stripped the panel, the button panel, the LCD, but I still got this door mechanism on here, and I'll make use of that later. So that's that. That is how to salvage parts from a microwave, and I'm pretty happy with it. Got lots of goodies in this breakdown, so stick with me and we'll do our beer review. Alright, so we tore down a microwave. That was pretty cool. Got lots of goodies out of that teardown. Now it's time for the beer review. Excuse the construction. I'm building a green screen, so hopefully next time I shoot a video it'll be from the top of Mount Everest or the Hubble Space Station, or something crazy like that. But anyway, for this episode we're going to be reviewing one of my all-time personal favorites, Fat Tire. Now this is brewed by New Belgium Brewing Company, and they are located in Fort Collins, Colorado. Fat Tire is like, I don't know, I'd call it their flagship brew. It's I don't know what they'd call it, but it's pretty cool. I like it. It's an amber ale. Yeah. So now we're gonna pop the top. Again, as always, drinking from clean glassware. So, always want to tilt the glass. Get that nice professional pour going on. Get a little bit of foam on top. Alright. You see it's a nice golden amber color, as you'd expect from something that has amber ale written on it. And it's very bubbly. There's lots of bubblage going on. Has moderate foam retention. It's pretty good, pretty thick, but not, something like a stout. So, there you go. Now it has sort of a, I want to say, I use this term cautiously, I want to say sort of a mild pungent aroma to it. So it has like that sweet, I don't know how to describe it. It's sweet, but it's slightly bitter in its scent. It's pleasing, but it's on the verge of being offensive. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. It's just slightly, you know what I mean? But it's sweet and it has that sort of, almost like burnt honey smell to it. Now let's go in for the taste. Now when it first hits the palate, it has a very hearty, sweet, flavorful taste to it. I'm trying to think of what to compare it to. That initial punch is like a honey chocolate donut. Very sweet, very pleasing, something you can really sink your teeth into. It's moderately viscous. You know, it's not super thick like a stout. You know, but it's not superfluous like a lager. It's kind of mid-range, kind of in between. You know, it's thick enough, but it's not too thick. And after that sweet, you know, that initial sweet punch, it finishes off with the moderately bitter, you know, not too bitter, like a good bitter. You know, it's letting you know it's there. It's leaving its mark, but it's not overpowering. So overall, I like it. It's good. It's got a nice caramel-esque feel to it. Again, it comes in like sweet caramel honey chocolate donut, and then it leaves you marking its territory, if that makes any sense. So, yet again, another beer review from Beer and Gear. Doc Nasty coming at you. Fat Tire from New Belgium Brewing Company, located in Fort Collins, Colorado. One of my all-time favorites right here, so if you get a chance, check them out. I hope you can enjoy them as much as I do. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, or else.